Nicole is here. Gail's here. Welcome, Gail. Hey is here. Linda's here. Gadeen. And yeah, ready to go.
And I saw Susan Christie here as well. Yeah, you said that at the beginning. So just taking a look at everyone. So welcome, everyone. And thank you for joining us on this last minute decision to put on a live stream this morning on Zoom. Jason and I have been talking recently, and usually whenever we're on conversation together, we get inspired and we get on a roll, and we're like, why aren't we recording this? This is awesome material. But just about a week ago, I was sitting in trance for a few of my sitters, and something that my guide spoke about was that they wanted us to talk more about life on the other side. And they said, anything that you want to know, you can ask us. And anything that you need to understand about what happens over here, they're more than willing to share as well. So I took that to heart, and I made a few notes. And from there, I've been doing some writing on it and some posts, but also felt it was important to share a bit about my experience with death, Jason's experience with it, as well as all the things that have come through in readings for us, as well as things that we've read from spiritual texts and spiritualism, as well as just what our guides have said in trance experiences. Do you know what I mean, Jason?
I do. So I'm looking forward to this talk with Nicole. I've had my experiences, and Nicole's had her experiences, and I think it's beautiful to share experiences, because we're both working mediums, and we both work. We both had mainly the same tutors, but Nicole, coming from Canada, has had probably different experiences to what I've had coming from England. And my experiences are very interesting, but Nicole's are very interesting as well. So it's good to have the combination of the two. So I'm looking forward to this talk, Nicole.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that happened to me when I was about 19 years old is that my very best friend, Mary, she died suddenly of meningitis. Now, this was a friend that I would consider more of like a soul sister, or, you know, best friend, someone that we pretty much shared a spirit and did everything together. Losing her was, you know, a very difficult time for me, but something that happened quite quickly when she passed was that I started having experiences of her in the afterlife. One particular was that she, 3 nights after she passed away, which is interesting, the 3 days later, I'm thinking of Jesus with the resurrection here, but she came to me in my sleep and started to shake me. And I said, no, I can't do this. I'm in way too much grief right now. I can't be seeing you. This is just a dream. I need it to stop. And she says, no, I have to let you know that I'm real. And she says, I didn't die. I'm right here. And I said, I know that, but this is too much. And she said, no, I need to prove it to you that I'm here and that I've never died. And I said, okay, sure, whatever. And she took my sheets of my bed and pulled them. And I went flying onto the other side of the room and hit the ground. And I woke up, and I had no idea how I ended up on the other side of the room, how all my sheets with me flew and rolled around me and ended up onto the other side there. My mom came barreling in the room, wondering what happened. And I just said, well, I was dreaming. I had a visitation from Mary. She told me she was real. I said that it was fake. And she took me and flew me across the room to prove it to me that she was really here. And, you know, my mom, being as compassionate as she was, she says, I need you to know that you have to believe it. That when things happen like that, I'm your proof that these things really do go on, and that our loved ones can share these experiences with us as well. Well, after that one experience, throughout the year, she came to me multiple times and would take my hand and take me to the other side. And she would take me through walks and galleries, and she would show me the fields and stuff like that. And we had this meeting place that we would go to on the corner of a rock that would look over this cove of water, where we could look up at all the different psychedelic stars and skies. And we would sit there and we just have conversation. And she would tell me that in the dream state is the only place that she could take me and cross me over to be able to see where she was living and how she was doing. About a year after this happened, they did start to decline, and she felt that it was more important for me to have my own experiences. But that was really the birth of me becoming a medium. And it was through that time that I had not a doubt in my life that there really was an afterlife, and that there was no such thing as death. and that only in the separation of the physical body could I still retain and have these, you know, amazing connections with my loved ones, but just in more of an etheric way as well. Now, Jason, I've heard your story about your brother, and I would love for you to share with all of us just the things that he did for us, because I know he's just one of the most amazing people and spirits, and you have a great story about him as well.
Okay, I will do. Yeah, my brother was the person. I didn't have a medium teach me that the spirit life that life continued after we died. The moment my brother died, I got the call, and they said, "You have to come here because he's died, and there's going to be a funeral." And I thought, okay, I'll have to arrange this. So, arrange time off work to get over there. And my brother was someone that could in life could never keep a secret. So he couldn't wait to let me know about this secret that life continues. So yeah, I got on the plane, and I was just, you know, we'd taken off and we're on our way to England to go to Wales. And I just dozed off. I was so tired, you know, through everything. And I dozed off and I went to sleep. And the next thing I felt was like a breathing in my ear. And it was like, you know, and I woke up and I looked and I saw and the aisle was here. There was no one sitting next to me. So I was like, this is strange. So I just closed my eyes again. And again, I wasn't sleeping this time. I could hear this breathing in my ear. So I thought all these little things that are going on, I thought, this is strange. And when I got there, I said to my sister, I said, you know, I said, I don't know about you, but since he's been passed to the spirit world, I keep getting all these signs. I keep getting, you know, I keep feeling that I was getting touched on my hair. There's all this stuff going on. And my sister said, yeah, me too. We're getting the same sort of signs, sort of stuff going on, things moving about. And that night we all decided, okay, let's get an early night. So I went to sleep. And suddenly at 3 o'clock in the morning, I felt an energy surge running through me. And it was like an amazing energy surge. And I thought, oh no, I'm wide awake. But all I kept hearing was, in the vibration of that energy, was wake me up. And it was just wake me up, wake me up. It was like very, very loud vibration coming through me, and just unconditional love. So I got out of bed because obviously I couldn't sleep. I think I cleaned my mother's kitchen, which she was very happy with because I couldn't do anything else. I stayed up until about 6 o'clock in the morning. I managed to, you know, hold myself back from not waking anyone up. And when I woke my sister up, I woke her up and I said to her, I said, you know, I got woken up with this song. You got to find this song. It's called Wake Me Up, Wake Me Up. I said, he's not going to let me sleep unless you find this song. And my sister looked for it. The moment she played it, I suddenly felt relieved. And because she just sifted through his thing. I didn't know what it was, but I'd never heard of it before. And when my sister played it, it was like, oh, okay, now I can relax. And I said, that's it. He wants to have that on his funeral, and that was Ever Essence, Wake Me Up Inside. Now, the night after that, we went to sleep. My sister got woken up with another song, and that was the next song that he wanted in his own funeral. The third night, my wife, who was then a disbeliever, didn't believe in this sort of thing, didn't believe. She thought, well, you know, we're grieving, so we're bound to have these experiences. But she's quite, you know, down to earth. She didn't think she'd have these sorts of experiences. She rang us up early in the morning, and I said, oh, you're up early. Don't worry about being up early, she said. You've got to find the song about another train, she says, and you've got to find it quick because he's got to let me sleep this time. I said, what are you talking about? I said, yeah, he woke me up with this song. And so the amazing thing was, my brother proved not only to me, to my wife, to my sister, to other people that had been woken up, he chose all his songs for his funeral after he died. 2 weeks before his funeral, he brought them through in our sleep. Now, he had a CD player, and whenever we were together before his funeral, we had to wait because there was going to be an inquest, because he obviously died a drugs-induced death. And his CD player, whenever we'd put a CD on that wasn't his type of music, it would just skip and not play. And whenever we put music on that he liked, it would play. So I was saying to my sister, we've got to try this out. So we kept swapping CDs and seeing what worked and what worked. And any music that he didn't like would not play on his CD player, and any music he did like would play on it. When they came to take him away to bury him for his funeral, that was pretty amazing as well, because they switched the car off and they switched the radio off in the car, and they were just putting his coffin in the back. When that happened, suddenly the radio went on, and the guy went in and said, "I'm so sorry, I'll switch it off." And he said, "Well, really, that shouldn't be going on because the car's not on." I said, "But he switched it off." Okay, we got out, closed the door, it went on again, full blast, playing rock music. He went back in again, switched it off. And it got switched on again. He said to us, this guy, he said, "Did he like music?" "Yes." "I'll leave it on then." And so that was one of the amazing things that he did, apart from letting us feel that he was there, touching the hair, and just the feeling of him being around us. I mean, there was one moment just when we were working things out and I was alone in the house, where I felt his hands on my shoulder and I felt an etheric hug. And I thought, I turned behind me and I was like, but there's nobody there. And whenever I was explaining this to people, the only person that understood me was my sister, because she was very sensitive and she was having the same sort of experiences. And when we got in contact with what was my brother's girlfriend, she was having the same experiences as well. Also, when we talked to her, he was touching her hair, messing around with the music, moving stuff around, making stuff jump, and he didn't like it. So it was an amazing, amazing experience, even though it was a very emotional experience for the family. Since then, he moved stuff around, just like we can hear stuff moving around here in the background. But he used to move stuff around. My mum used to curse him and say, "You've broken my computer." He's done it again. He's broken my computer. And we thought, because her computer was working fine until he passed. But then when she got on the computer, every time it was like Windows was shutting down, then it was moving, then files were moving and files were getting deleted. And really, she was really grieving quite a lot at the time. But in the end, she was just saying to my brother's name, "So will you please stop this? You're being a naughty boy." But it sort of brought her out of her grief for that moment. So our brother really proved to us life continues without even having to go to a medium. When I went to a really good medium, I could sense him behind this medium, like messing around like he was doing in life, making jokes. And the medium's a really good medium. I'm not going to mention his name, but he was a really good medium, and he was doing his best. And then suddenly he was like, "No, I got that wrong, and I got this wrong." And he said, "I don't know. I can hear him laughing at me. Was he a bit of a joker?" And I'm going, "Yes, he was a bit of a joker." And the information the medium brought through was very good, but there were some bits where I just knew he was messing around and you could just see him. So since then, my brother has been around quite a lot. When the first time I went to the Arthur Findlay, he came through, I think he came through about 20 times the first time I was there, through different mediums, so 20 different mediums. And we experimented in circle this one time. He came through 20 mediums in one go in 20 different places. So he showed us the possibility that that when you're in the afterlife, you don't need to just be in one place. You can be in many places at the same time. And just rewinding to before we actually had the funeral, he was with me in Holland, with my sister in England, with my mother in Wales, and with someone else in the other side of England as well. At the same time, we were all reporting incidences that he was there. So he proved to us that when we get to the other side, you're not just in one space, and there are many more possibilities than whatever we can imagine. So basically, he woke me up, definitely.
And I love that, because it sounds like both of us had stories of losing loved ones, and through their death, they were able to share with us and show us that not only are they alive, but they're with us in multiple different ways and forms. And I'm just going to encourage everyone to put their mute buttons on, just because you can hear some of the sound coming through. So there is a button on the top bottom left corner that you can probably hit, and that way it won't come into the call there. And I think I just lost Jason for a second there.
No, I'm here.
Okay, good, because you just went black for a second. But I wanted to talk about the actual process of passing over. I know Jason and I both have had experiences where we've come close to death. I had one once where the light was in front of me, and something that Spirit has shared, and I've read through spiritual texts like Silver Birch and stuff like that, is how we view life and our things that we desire. So maybe if we were a Christian, we would see Jesus, some people would see Buddha, or some people would see nature, or their loved ones in spirit. It's like how we imagine it to be is almost like our entry into the other world. And I remember when I was 17, I had my wisdom teeth pulled. And at that time, my absolute favorite movie was Vanilla Sky. And it's a Tom Cruise movie. And when he dies in the movie, he travels through the speed of light. And it's almost like this clear white light that he goes at, like rapid speed. When I was having my wisdom teeth pulled, and in the process of putting me under, I thought I was going to die because I was very alert in the room, and then all of a sudden I was traveling at the speed of light, and I could see this white light at the end of the tunnel, and I knew I was heading for it. And in that moment I had clear peace that I was going to be okay, that I was going to be well taken care of. But I ended up coming back. But it was almost like in those moments of visitations or having close experiences to death. But I always say it's like, if you don't believe in, a God or Jesus, your entry isn't going to be that to the other world. It's going to be a comfortable transition for you. And it's going to be a way that feels right to your soul and in your experiences. Because something that's in the other world is all we have is our ability to create whatever we see. We don't have a physical body like we do here on earth, and we aren't tangible like we are. It's almost as if we enter into this dream state like we do when we fall asleep, where nothing is actually physical. And anything that we want to create, we do that with our mind. So meaning if I wanted to look like I am in this life, I can create that just through my mind. And if I wanted to see maybe Jason in an afterlife, all I would have to do is think of him and he would appear in front of me. And things that I would enjoy doing, like painting or playing music or walking in nature, to me, this would only ever be a thought away. And I would be able to paint my own reality and create my own version of myself in my afterlife. Jason, did you want to add anything to that and your experiences? I know you've had quite a few.
Well, after having, I think I probably had about 5 or 6 near-death experiences, which I survived and didn't pass to the spirit world. But that was driving my bike, so I don't do that anymore. But having I've had 2 near-death experiences in my life, and one of them was when I was on the operating table, and I just left my body. I was hovering above my body at one moment. I was aware of being out of my body. And before I knew it, I was going through the ceiling. And I went through the ceiling and I ended up in a spiritual realm, going through the tunnel of light. And when I got to the tunnel of light and I got through there, I saw just an amazing bright white light. And when I went in, it was like, for me, as a young child, I believed in heaven, so I was seeing a heavenly experience, and for me it was beautiful, like fields of green, but all clouds surrounding it. And when I went up there, I met some of my grandparents, and I had an experience, and I just loved being there. And they told me I couldn't stay, and I said, but I want to stay because I really enjoyed what I saw. And the next minute I kept hearing my name, Jason, Jason, Jason. And I just felt myself getting called back to my body. And I just was dragged right the way back through the tunnel and ended up back in my body. But before I was back in my body, I was looking above myself and I could see the surgeons still working on me, trying to resuscitate me. And when I got back into my body, it was like that's when I arrived back into my body. And it was like an instance for me. It probably only felt like a minute or 2 minutes, but so much happened within those 2 minutes. It was quite amazing. I wouldn't know how long it was. And that was the first time. Obviously, that was in a child's hospital at the time. The surgeon didn't mention a word to it after me because they sedated me after the operation, which was a morning operation. By the time I came around after being sedated the second time, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. So it was from 11 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the morning. I was sleeping. So not a normal operation, and the surgeons didn't mention a word about what happened, not to me or not to the family. So very strange that. Then my second time that I passed to the spirit world was in my flat, and I was lying on my bed, and suddenly I just felt myself leave my body. Went to the spirit world, and I ended up going through the column of light, getting through the tunnel, and when I got to the top, it was just pure white light. And I was going through a lot of depression at the time and going through a lot of problems at the time in my 20s, and that's when it happened. And when I arrived there into that light, it was like a beautiful white light, and I just saw beings of light who I didn't know. We might consider them guides or angels, but they were beings of light, and they guided me to a room where I could receive a healing, and it was for me the healing room. So a totally different experience than the first one. So I went in that room, and I was allowed to sit there and just enjoy this eminence of light and healing that was there. And after a while, I was called for, and they called me out of that healing room, and they called me back, and they said to me, if you would like to return, we know your life hasn't been easy. We know it's been difficult. We know that you've had some very difficult times. We cannot promise you the rest of your life will be an easy life, but we can promise you it will be a very fulfilling life, and you will inspire many people. And if you do not choose to go, it does not matter, because we will send someone else. And I thought that was really strange, but I said, well, I'll go back. The moment I said I'll go back, before I knew it, I was back in my body. There was people banging on the door really, really hard, shouting my name, Jason, Jason, Jason. I was lying under the duvet at the time in a room that was probably about 40 degrees. When I got out of bed, my body was freezing. My feet had cramped up. My legs had cramped up and I couldn't hardly walk. So freezing away, I walked to the door to open the door, and two of my friends came in. They said, "We've been here for ages trying to get you out, to come and open the door. Where have you been?" I said, "I don't know," and they said I was freezing. I was shaking like a leaf. And they said to me they had to put me in front of the fire, put blankets around me to warm me up. And they asked me what was happened, and I said, "Well, I don't really know what's happened. I didn't know how to put it into words." And when I told them, my friend said to me, I wouldn't tell that to a psychiatrist if I was you, because they'll put you away. So I never told anyone about that experience, because it was what I would call, it wasn't something that you think, it happened spontaneously. But obviously it wasn't my time. So whether it was something to do with my heart or whatever at the time, I don't know. But all I know is after going into that healing room and coming out, and coming back into this lifetime, my life did not get better. They were correct. I did have to overcome my obstacles, but it has been a very fulfilling life, and it still is a very fulfilling life. And I do inspire people, which is quite an amazing thing. So, Nicole, that's my two stories of how it was in the afterlife.
I love that. And what you shared about is that partially it was a choice too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I do believe that it's almost like we have outings in life. It's like things will happen to us where we'll have experiences where it's almost like we get to choose. It's like, do I vacate now? Do I go to the other side now? Or do I come and go deeper into my life? Going back to my story with Mary after she died, my life changed dramatically. And I went into maybe what you would call a depression, and I did get very inquisitive about this world and what I was doing here and a purpose. And I was working as a hairstylist in Squamish at the time, and I was feeling that something was missing. And when I was 22, so 3 years later, I got very sick with appendicitis. And I remember being in emergency, and I had septicemia. My appendix already ruptured, and it was like I wasn't getting the proper care that I needed for some reason. It's almost like I would go to emergency, but I wasn't really being treated like it was an emergency. But I remember this beam of light came to me, and it came all around me in my front. And it had a voice, and it said, are you ready to come home? Do you want to go home now? And I said, no, I don't want to do this. And I'm talking out loud in emergency. So already, I'm a little bit under the weather, right? And I said, I don't want to go. I can't do this to my family. I've already lost Mary. I saw what happened to her parents. I can't. And then this voice said to me, this gold glowing ball, it said, well, then you must promise that you have to do this work. And I said, but I don't know what this work is. And it says, it's okay. Trust us, we'll show you. And it was from there that I got led into Reiki. I learned about intuitive readings, that I started my real spiritual practice, going to India and different sacred sites around the world. And that took me very deep into mediumship in a very short period of time as well. But I do believe that some souls do have that choice if they want to cross over or not. And I also believe that if you do choose to come back, there is some deep work that maybe you're needing to do, or you're being called, welcome to do as well. But I don't want to say that about every soul, because I want to say a lot of readings that I do, when people come and they sit with me, especially around like losing parents or partners, especially in that midlife age around 50s or 60s, something that they'll share with me is that they weren't ready to die, that they were mad, actually, that they had to die, and that maybe they were fighting and battling with cancer, and they felt as if there was a sense of shame that they couldn't cure themselves. So I just want to say that sometimes people have the choice to come back and live differently, and other times that really was their contract, and that time was up, that they came and they fulfilled everything that they needed to do in this lifetime, and when they were done, they simply maybe formed an illness or something like that and crossed over. I want to share about what it's like over there, because again, every single spirit that has come through has shared something just a little bit different, or even just the stage of their passing, they've shared something that's a little bit different. Meaning, like if someone had come for a mediumship reading after someone had passed, opposed to 10 years in our world, it would look really different. Jason, did you want to share a bit about some of the things that Spirit shared with you about what?
Yes. For me, I mean, the spirit world. The amount of times I've been bringing people through my mediumship, and the amount of times I've made contact, especially with people from the spirit. Yeah, somebody is making a lot of noise. I think it's Sarah. Sarah, could you please turn your microphone off by any chance? Thank you. So I'll start again. So the amount of medium contacts that I've done over the years, and the amount of contact I've had with the spirit world, and I think it's amazing what the spirit world can say to loved ones, how it is on the other side. I mean, I've had old people pass into the spirit world that have suffered really severe cancer, or they've suffered really, really terrible illnesses and a lot of pain, and then when they've come through, they've been able to say, the moment I got to the spirit world, there was no pain. The moment I got to the spirit world, I could walk again. The moment I got to the spirit world, I didn't feel the dementia anymore. I could think again. All these sort of things, which was a wonderful experience for the sitters that came for a private reading with me. And it was like, just amazing how the spirit world could bring that and let us know that when we do part of the spirit world, there is no pain. and our sickness is gone, you know. Also, I've had a gentleman that passed to the spirit world with an accident, and his wife came to me for a contact, and he managed to say, and I just had to just say word for word what he wanted to say, which it was an accident. And she said, "Are you sure it was an accident? Are you sure it wasn't on purpose?" I said, I said word for word what he said. I said, "No, the police said it was an accident. There was something wrong with the chains. The chains were wrong, and that's why." And being able to bring that information, she broke down in tears and could accept the fact that it was an accident that took him to the spirit world. He let her know the moment. It was quick, it wasn't painful, and he was gone as quickly as possible, which was one of her biggest problems, you know. And she was so happy to receive the information from spirit, because all I gave was word for word. As another example, my brother passed to spirit. He managed to communicate that it was his choice. His lifestyle basically took him away from us. He was told he was resuscitated 3 or 4 times while he was on these drugs, and when he actually did it, the doctor said to him, the next time you do drugs again, it'll be your last, because your heart can't take it. And when he passed the spirit world, he managed to bring through the message that it was his choice, and that he was also just as surprised to be beside himself in the spirit world, and thought, oh, perhaps I can get more out of this than what was possible. He passed very quickly to the spirit world and could let us know that it was a choice of his actions. And I think that's wonderful to know, because when he passed to the spirit world, it's not that he mentioned to me that it was like a world where someone was judging him. There was no one judging him, but he judged himself. So he got a chance to look at his life when he was in the spirit world, say, what am I going to do? And that's why he got the choice to be able to do so much for family, to help us in our grief, and to help us in our things. And so that experience showed me that, you know, when our loved ones do pass, either by an accident or either by very quickly of their own devices, then they get a choice to be able to help family and bring healing where it's needed.
Yes, absolutely. And I just want to encourage, if anyone has a question, you feel free to write it down in the chat box on the side. And just a reminder, if anyone has their volume on, especially blenders, to just put the mute button on the side as well. So that would be really helpful. Thank you. So I just want to talk about, for me, some of the things that Spirit has shared, because over the years, they've said many different things as well. And one of them is something I've noticed for women, or, you know, men, when they've lost like a parent at a young age, or when they've lost someone that's very, very caring towards them, that when they pass to spirit, that they sometimes want to spend a lot of time around their loved one. And they do this because they want to be able to let them know that they're supported, that they're not alone, and that they're still with you. And sometimes spirit has said things like, I've come back to walk with you for the rest of this life, or to be a guide for you. And sometimes, you know, the sitter will be like, oh no, send them away. I feel terrible. They got stuff to do on the other side. I don't want to do that. I don't want them to feel like they have to take care of me. And what I say to people is that, you know, there's no such thing as time when you're on the other side. So for you, what may be another, you know, 50 years, for them is just a blip. Like, it doesn't mean anything. And, you know, for them, it's not a big deal. And it's because they see a need on the earth plane and they choose to be helpful. Another thing is that sometimes, you know, a spirit will pass to the other world and they'll want to have time and space to really explore themselves. So they don't feel the need to constantly be coming back and to sharing messages and stuff like that. And I have I lost 2 friends 3 months apart. One was Mary and another one was Krista. But Mary, she chose to come back to Earth a lot to be a support and to share about the other side. And my other friend, Krista, it was almost like she needed that space to be in the other side on her own, or to let herself grieve, or to pass over, or to also evolve her soul as well. And to this day, which it's been about 13 years now, very rarely she'll come through. And when she does, it's usually because she'll say something like, having such a good time over here, I'm really busy, you know, I love my life. But I believe it's because they can choose what they want to do, whatever is best for them as well. Other things that they've shared in readings and stuff like that is that, you know, if they love to fish here, they'll be fishing over there. If they love to build houses, they'll share about how they built this beautiful home, you know, in the spirit world. And they're looking forward to, you know, when it's your time and you can see the home that they created. They'll talk about how they are with their loved ones, or they'll talk about how they're not with their loved ones. Or maybe, you know, if a husband and wife were, you know, battled it out for years and years. There.
I think Dawn and Lee have got their microphones on. If they could put them out, that might help.
Yeah. But if they were a husband and wife that maybe they battled it out for 50 years or something like that, and they loved each other, but they didn't love each other, you know, on the other side, they may choose to say hello, but they don't actually want to be together either. And that's something that will come up in readings quite often. Is we'll see.
Dawn, could you please put your microphone off?
I'm trying, sorry.
It's on the left-hand side. Just click the little green microphone on the left-hand side at the bottom.
On my phone, and I'm trying to move over to my computer, but I can't do it. So I'm going to go. Sorry.
Somebody's written, Nicole, you should be able to mute them yourself, because you've got the rights to do that now.
How do I do that?
I think so. I think you can click on them.
Wait a moment before I continue. All right. Okay, I think that's better. Okay. So yeah, basically how they choose to spend time with others and the other side is completely up to them as well. And a big thing that comes up for mediums, and I know Jason has a lot to say about this too, is forgiveness. So when you pass over, you have a period of time where you can look at your life and reflect on it, and how you chose to handle situations, how you went through experiences. And this is a time of like life review. And it's almost like, it's like you came to earth with a purpose, with a mission. And here's your chance now to see how, you know, how you did. And now, as like Jason said, there's no vengeant God here ready to judge you, or anybody on the other side that's ready to pick a fight with you. This is all for you. So all your experiences on earth are there for you to have an opportunity to decide how you want to react to things and how you want to respond. And so when you cross over and you look at your life review, this is your chance to see, you know, how you did, where you learned, and continue to learn on the other side as well. Now, Jason, I'm going to get you to talk about the forgiveness piece of why spirits come back to ask for forgiveness to their loved ones who are still here.
Well, I think when I go back to my brother's experience, I mean, he came through a lot of times to say that he was sorry that he'd made the choices in his life that he'd made. And, you know, he was very sorry. And he came and he mentioned that through so many different mediums just to get the point across. And I've had loved ones come through as well to mention that they're sorry that the way. I've had fathers come through to mention that they're sorry that they were awkward and they didn't listen, or they didn't spend much time with their people. And basically what it did was help people move on in that grieving process, or even brought healing to difficult relationships. Because I mean, I've brought through fathers that had difficult relationships with their sons, but also with daughters, and where that them being able to say sorry for what they did was a very good way for them to be able to create healing for the person that was in the world, like that daughter or son that was left behind, could be helped with healing at that time. And that was very beautiful. But I've had people that have taken their own lives that have come back just to say that they're sorry for the pain that they've caused. But some people that have come through, they were very blatant to say that this was my choice, and this is the choice that I wanted to make. And but they've, in a very loving way, could say sorry for all the pain that they've caused. And that's some readings can be quite emotional, but when you think about it, it is to bring basic healing to the participants, Nicole.
Yeah, and another thing that I see often is if a father was abusive here, maybe to his children, to his son or his daughter, and they see them struggling based on how they treated them continuously through their whole life. Like maybe his daughter is in many broken marriages, or is with a man that's abusing her now, and he's now in spirit and is able to see how his actions are affecting. Quite commonly, they will do whatever they can to get through, to speak in a message, to say, I'm so sorry for what I've done. I'm so sorry that how my actions, that now that this is what's happening to me. And they see how that ripple effect does cause, pain into others. And I loved what you said about that, because they do apologize for the pain that they cause all the time as well. And I do believe it's interesting of, why they choose to come too, because a part of them is still connected to their loved ones. And a part of them, it's almost like until they seek that forgiveness that they receive, that then maybe that their soul can continue to evolve on the other side. Because they come to earth, and we all choose to come here. We weren't forced here. We weren't, pushed here or anything like that. We had a blueprint. We knew what we came to work on. And if you want to learn more about that, ask Matthew in the Gene Keys, which is my husband, because you get the whole blueprint of what you chose to work on in this life, and it's all written. There's no surprise, and you actually stop feeling sorry for people when you see what they actually choose to work out in this life. They come here and have these experiences. And then, it's a fast track, because in rapid speed, you can continue to evolve your soul. Because on the other side, it's eternal. And to continually evolve, we continue to move, into, other realms, into higher aspects of yourself. And we want to be able to continue to evolve our soul. And, that's why Earth is such a great opportunity for all of us to be able to learn from our lessons in such a short period of time. Again, if anybody wants to write a question down or have anything that they want to ask about the other side, we can see if we can answer that. Jason, I'll probably get you to translate, because
yeah, that's a good one. So just to jump on that last bit, what Nicole said about when they want to say sorry and they want to bring healing. I know my brother had he made it apparent he had a choice. When he was in the realm where he was in the spirit world, he had a choice, and his choice was to do whatever he could to bring healing to the family. And that's why he was so busy and had the opportunity to do so much in the first year, 1.5 years that he'd left the earth. He wanted to say sorry for his choice to leave this planet, really. And he could only see his faults through his own what he saw himself. So there was like this, there was no one judging him on the other side. The judgment came from himself, and he was like, okay, I really need to remedy this and bring healing. And most of the time, people that have been in this situation, so as my brother, they seek to bring healing to the people that they've left behind. So I just wanted to mention that. But now we've got Gedine, and she's written in Dutch. Kan je het in hier een traan voelen uit het hiernaast? Can you feel a tear? Can you feel tears from the afterlife?
Say that one more time.
can you feel the tears from the afterlife? So, Gadine, just to say, I'm just going to speak a little Dutch now. Als ik je vraag, goed begrijp, je wil weten als je kan voelen als de mensen sombere zijn aan de andere kant, toch? Oké. Als je de tranen kan voelen. I'm not quite understanding her question, so if Gadine could write that another way. So next one is Nicole in circle. Steve connected to someone who was very sad and conveyed such deep sorrow. Steve called it 1,000 sorrows. Did they get relief from their sorrow, or some of it from coming through to someone on earth?
Okay, so this is a very interesting question, because something we find out through readings is that suicide, overdose isn't always the easy way out. It's not really the ending to pain. And I want to answer this very delicately, because I don't want to hurt anybody. I also want people to know that, once you cross over, it isn't all just sunshine and rainbows. You can't just commit suicide and then boom, everything's bright again. It's how you chose to live on earth will be a reflection to your transition in the afterlife. Because like I said, how you choose to see things is how it's going to be mirrored to you when you cross over. So if you, were in a really bad way and a really hard life and you harmed a lot of people, and then you just, took your life, like for instance, maybe a husband that killed his 3 kids and then killed himself afterwards. When you cross over, you're going to go into that life review and everything's going to be mirrored to you and magnified of what happened, and that forgiveness that maybe you need to come back to earth to say. Because when you cross over, and I'm going to speak a little bit about Lee's question here below, you are removed from your humanness, your ego, your mind, your body. And now you are seeing things from a very evolved state as well. You're not seeing things from how you saw them when you were in the body. And this is kind of like the ego overview. You're now up here being able to look and reflect on your life with a detachment of the ego. So in the instance what Steve was in, when he felt that 1,000 sorrows from that woman, she chose Steve because she knew that she could get across her message, and that Steve was the one in that room that night, the 12 of us, that would be able to say it in the way that she needs to say it. That she could get her apology, her sorry, her sorrow across, so that, her partner can fully understand that she's taking responsibility for maybe her life or what happened for her, and that she needed that forgiveness in order to find peace for herself, to seek peace for all the loved ones that had been left behind as well. Because, once that message is put across, the work is done. And, a medium that Jason and I used to love to see, Eamon Downey, he used to always say that mediumship is the highest form of healing, because you can change someone's life in a matter of a second. Not only the person in front of you, but you can also change the person in spirit, because they'd finally come across to say what they needed. And maybe that was the final piece for them to, be able to move now into that eternal life of joy and happiness that they needed to receive in order to be able to do that as well. Jason, is there anything that you wanted to say about that? Because I know both of us have given a lot of messages with lots of sorrow, but it's not necessarily how the spirit is feeling that sorrow anymore either.
Yes, there was when we go on that question about do we lose our ego when we cross over, when we cross over, we come into what I call the first realm of the spirit world, and in that's what a sort of transitional vibrational realm, where you can be helped by guides and inspirers in that space. But when you actually come there, that's when you can deal with your stuff. That's when you can say, right, okay, we need to bring healing to the family, we need to do this. What happens sometimes, some mediums say, oh, I'm picking up the sorrow from the spirit world. But in the spirit world, the ego has transcended and it has changed, because if you imagine the ego is connected to the brain and not connected to the soul. So when we pass over to the spirit world, we let go of the ego and we let go of the body, and we let go of the brain. So anything that was, in the ego, we lose that part when we pass to the spirit world. And when we go there, we are the purest form of our being, of who we are. But in that first layer that I was talking about, that's where we can do the work. That's where we can say, okay, I did take my own life, so I'm going to have to bring some healing, or I'm going to have to do this. And that's that part. And when we transcend from that, when we're helped through spiritual masters and spiritual guides there, we can move forward into the next level where we can work more on our spiritual growth. And for my brother, that was like, it took 1.5 years to do what I would call his repairing for the family. And then in about the 2-year period, we felt him further away, and he didn't come through as much because the need, and that's it, the need was not there. So there was no need for him to come, because we had accepted that we had accepted what had passed. We'd accepted how it was gone. There was a lot of healing that had taken place, and that's one thing to remember with that part. And I think Gadine said, "Can you feel the tear of grief from someone in the spirit world?" Well, when they first passed to the spirit world, I could feel like the tears from a brother. That's when that first moment. But within weeks and months after that, it was difficult for me, because it was my grief. Is it my tears, or is it the spirit world's tears? I've never had a spirit come through that's been there, more than 2 months, and they've been there, and they're like, they're sad. I get more the experience that because they've got the overview and they've left their ego, they're happy. But the only thing that makes them sad is to see our sadness. Yeah. So that's what I found with my brother. He just wanted to, do as much to help with grief here in our family and with everything. So I just felt it was just like he was trying to make up for lost time. And I know there's a lot of people that have lost people to accidents, and they lost people to suicides and stuff like that. But basically he had a choice, and my brother took his choice. But for that 1.5 years, he was constantly busy trying to, prove stuff to us and to make us feel better and all that sort of thing. But after that, when we moved on and we were getting over our grief and we could breathe again, that's when he could go further into the spiritual realms. And now he is still there, but it's like it's more distant. It's more distant. And I think that's the thing to remember. So that's my story about that part, Nicole.
I wanted to read. Thank you, Jason. That was beautifully put, and I love how you make this a teaching moment to explain the different layers of the field and how it works like that. I'm just reading one of these questions, and I was just wondering if I can answer it. So, the great meow. What do I do when my loved one's son, who had a motorcycle accident, says he is there to help you with mediumship, but the pain from the loss of them feels like it is paralyzing the progress? I push hard, then I go months where I can't read books or do circles because of the grief. How can we maneuver through grief in our life purpose? So I'll speak a bit about my own personal experiences, because when I lost my best friend, I too was paralyzed in grief and was hearing very similar messages, like, I'm here to help you open up, I'm here to help you mediumship. And I didn't care. I was like, I'm in pain, right? And the more I tried to push anything, the further it set me back, because mediumship is a process of unfoldment, a process of kind of touching our pain. It's a process of, dealing with our grief in maybe layers that we hadn't reached yet. But when we're in that shock phase, or where we're in those early stages of grief, or even like later stages of grief, where we can't use this as a means to talk to the afterlife, it just means it's not time. And I know James Van Praagh, reading one of his books, I think it was Messages from Spirit or something like that, he says, don't do mediumship just to connect with your loved ones in spirit, and your only reason of development is to connect with yours. It's because that's not the point of mediumship. It's to be a messenger of spirit and to be able to bring through those messages for those who need it around you. Now, of course, our loved ones passing away could be a gateway in getting us to mediumship, but it's not the reason we do it. It's not the destination of us getting there. So I would just say for you, it's because you're in the grief and you're in the process. And at the moment, doing mediumship may not be healing for you. It may mean what's healing for you is taking a time out from doing mediumship. But also knowing that when your son's saying he's here to help you with this, it may not be this moment or this second, because he can see the big picture now. He can see the eternity. He's in no rush for you to develop. But you may feel, oh, because he's saying that, I have to do this now. But what I feel for you is just to honor where you are right now, and to let it come to you in waves, and almost wait for that, inspiration coming back to you as well. Let me see one thing. Can you comment on the idea that we work on themes or issues throughout different lifetime, i.e. relationships or healing? Yeah, I'll answer this a little bit, and then I'll pass it on to Jason as well, because I know he has lots to say. So yes, like I was saying with Matthew and the Gene Keys, we do have different reasons that we come to Earth, and we do have different things that we're here to work out. At the moment in consciousness, and I've seen this in spiritual teachings and stuff like that, is that the main purpose we're here is to deal with relationships. Because, 1,000 years ago, whatever, we could go to the Himalayas, we could meditate in, caves and mountains, and we could bring ourselves to enlightenment. We don't really have that choice anymore. Our way of, kind of moving to those higher stages of consciousness is through dealing with people in our relationships in front of us, right? So, we will ask for certain tasks and certain themes, but a lot of relationships is when we project it onto somebody else, it's like, I don't want to deal with this pain inside of me, so I'm going to see it in you so it can take the attention off of me. So with shadow work, it's learning how to bring it back to ourselves and seeing how it's affecting us on a personal issue as well. So I believe that's why we work with things with relationships and healing in this lifetime. Jason, did you want to share anything about?
Okay, so so what Nicole was talking about was the first part was about the different lifetimes, relationships, and healing within this lifetime. Yeah, there are different themes that come up, Linda, and there are different things that we should work out within this lifetime. And I believe a certain amount is set in stone, and a certain amount isn't, because there's also the freedom of choice. So I believe when you look at a life's plan, it's like it's so complicated, but yet it is so simple. And the more that you get to understand what it is and what we've got to work out, the more that you realize, oh, there is so much more to learn about what the life's plan is, or what needs to be healed, or what relationships. I do know that there's a lot of soul sisters and soul brothers meeting up and resonating with each other and understanding each other. So that's the coming of this time. So things need to be worked out. So obviously, but I see Gail's thing, wondering if Jason meant an accident could just be an accident or not a person's intended time to go to one of their exit points. I lost my son in a motorcycle accident. Don't want my son to be distant. Now, Gail, that's one thing that I could say about that is I don't feel that your son's being distant, because for me, an accident is just an accident. We're lucky that we survive life, really. When you feel about it, like if you get to the age of 18 within this lifetime, 0 to 18, and you've survived, then you're the lucky one, right? Things do happen that take us from the spirit world that are out of our control. Is it our exit plan? Well, if it wasn't, then would be a possibility that we could come back. And so when it's a definite exit, then then we just have to accept that is it. I do feel your grief, but the thing is, when you feel about it, your son, I believe he does want to make contact. So not like my brother would, transcend and then, not be distant. But even though he's distant, he's still there. So it's like it's quite an amazing thing, really, because he'll raise his frequency, so he will feel further away, and yet he's still there. Because one thing to remember is that spirit world is only a thought away. And if we think of them with love, the bridge between that world and this world is love, and so they connect every time, so that's something to remember in that. Gail. So I hope that's explained it to you. And as for learning mediumship, I really enjoyed what Nicole said to the great meow about the grief and circles and stuff. And everyone's grieving process has a different time on it, and I wouldn't rush any part of it. And everyone deals with it in a different way. And I feel that it's very independent, and sometimes you can't rush it. And sometimes you need to give yourself space, and sometimes you need to give yourself time, and sometimes you just need to have some healing, but there's no magic cure to grief, because missing the physical body, and it's me being a medium, I can connect to spirit as many times, but you always miss that physical touch. You always miss them being in the room. So even being a medium, and Nicole knowing that as well with her people that she's missing, you don't have that physical touch. So that's something to remember, your process. And same as Nicole, I wouldn't advise doing circle. I would first connect and just feel the love from your loved one, and then see where that takes you. I think that's the main thing on there. Nicole?
So there's one last question here that I just want to read, and maybe you can both answer. I haven't read it yet. So down here in duality with the dense energies, sometimes we get stuck in fear, grief. The universe will shift mountains for us, bring every solution so we can continue our pre-planned journey. That's the romantic version. Sometimes they send us simple kicks up the bum to move on. Yeah, they do. They actually do. And, I recently heard this, and it was when I was with Eileen Davies last week in Vancouver. Her guide said that the only will that we're in charge of is the one we sign off before we die. Meaning that, that we do have a pre-planned, we have a pre-planned life. Like there's things that we came here to work out. What we're in control of is how we respond to things, right? So when we're down here on the earth plane and we're kicking in the mud and nothing's working out for me, and the victim, we're going to make life 100 times harder than we need it to be. And when we're praying to spirit, I need this, or I need help with this, and all these solutions start coming to you, and you get stuck in the mind going, nah, it's too much work, I don't want to do that, things will get taken away, to help you come to that realization that, yes, you say you want this, but yet you're not acting on it. So when you don't act on things, you're going to get a swift kick in the butt. The other one I see is when people say, how come I'm hitting every red light in life right now? I apply for this job, I hear nothing. I apply for another job, I get nothing. It simply is you're not looking in the right place. You're not looking the right way. And when things get really difficult for us, it's usually because we're making things more difficult, we're overcomplicating from the mind, or our guides are trying to redirect us, being like, look over here, maybe you had, like for me, I used to be a hairstylist. I pretty much paralyzed my neck. I was in so much physical pain that I couldn't even, manage. And all I could be is, oh, poor me, I can't be a hairdresser anymore. This is my only career. This is all I've ever done since I was 16 years old. Well, Spirit finally was like, well, if you keep being a hairdresser, you're never going to be a medium, right? So for me, it was my gateway out of hairdressing and into my, life as a career as a medium. So sometimes life has to get so physically painful for you to wake up to the reality of who you really are. And what I can tell you is that everything is here to help you. And every opportunity that comes to you is simply for you to look at and engage yourself and to help you evolve yourself consciously. But it is an all in how you look at things as well. Right, Jason, want anything to that? It was a little bit rough there, but I felt like it had to be said.
Yeah, very good. Again, what Jim was asking there, and basically basically a statement that sometimes they send us a little kick up the bum to move on. And I think my brother really literally did that. When I was like, I was like, oh, I don't think I could stand. I was in the Arthur Findlay College, and I thought I was going to be doing one-to-one sittings and just sitting in a nice quiet space practicing. And suddenly the teacher said, here, get up on stage and give us a demonstration. That was my first time. And I was like, oh, I don't know about that. But then I felt this literal kick up the bum. I was like, okay. And I'd shot out of my chair, like, okay. And just felt the push to do it. So in that way, the spirit world can move us in the right direction. As for life, the kick up the bum, life can do that as well. When I was working as a male nurse, eventually my work got so much into disruption where I had to move into the mediumship, similar to Nicole's. So that's one thing that happened as well. Now, Susan's written something, a theory, I believe, is the experience of goosebumps, a human truth detector. When it comes to the connection to the other side, can you give us your insights about this? She says me here, freezing cold. That was the first thing that I felt when I was having connection with the spirit world was the goosebumps. So that's something that was very thing. But also, when I feel that someone says something that is the truth, I get goosebumps. So I get that, and they are truth bumps. I call them truth bumps because it's like not only goosebumps but truth bumps. Because when someone says something that's of truth, and it's something that resonates, you get goosebumps. And it's like I felt also when one time I was in looking for a spiritual book, and I got goosebumps about one. Bless me, right? So I got to this book, and suddenly I got these goosebumps. I thought, oh, this is the one. This is the book I need to read. And that was my sign that, you know, this was the truth for me to read. And yeah, connection to the spirit world the same way. What about you, Nicole?
Yeah, and you know, because mediumship is all run off the system, right? So when spirit enters, it's like they enter at the base of the spine and it chills up your body. But absolutely, like when you're speaking and you're really on something, all of a sudden you'll get that ice cold, full goosebumps going up your arm. And to me, like Jason said, it's a full detector as well. It's like, oh, I know I'm accurate here. You know, spirit just clarified. And to me, that's like the full clarification point. I'm just going to read this from Sarah. Does spirit leave things such as dimes or feathers, or do you believe this is a them in order for them to do that? Do you have to believe this is them in order to do that? Often they'll come through in readings and be like, oh, they're leaving you dimes. And, you know, right before they came here, they found a dime, or they saw a dime last night. Or to me, I feel like in a reading, it's like their time to validate all the things that you found and being like, yes, this was me. Because, you know, when spirit passes over, they're just so excited that they're still alive, that when they see their loved ones on earth, grieving, thinking they will never see you again, that this is it, it's over, it's done with. This is their opportunity to say, I'll see you again, I'll be right here, and I'll be waiting for you. And in the meantime, let me send you these things to show you signs that you're on the right track, that you're going the right way. And, you know, you can ask for proof. You can be like, well, if this is really my mom or whatever, can you send me, you know, 3 signs? So it's 3 clear things, because there will be different, you know, beings at different points that will offer you signs. Like sometimes it will be a dad and leave you dimes, or sometimes it's your guide that's giving you the 10 rainbows or whatever. So it is good to be like, thank you, and acknowledgement. And, you know, in gratitude, we receive more, or whatever that saying is. But you can ask for continuous signs from them. And, you know, 3 is the lucky number. So I would just offer to experiment that as well. Yeah. Jason, anything else that you want to say before we bring this to a close?
I just had to smile at leaving dimes and feathers, and I know that gets used quite a lot, but my brother had a bit of a sense of humor, and he would send me wasps. Yes. And there was one time we were at a family gathering, and I told this story to Nicole, that I had a little sip of my beer, and then suddenly this wasp came over and it kissed me on the lips, and then it flew away. And we thought that this is strange, and it happened more than once, and it was like, okay, this is strange. So we took it that the wasp was a totem from my brother. The moment I told Nicole this, we were in a spiritual church in the basement, and everything was closed. So there was no way. It wasn't even the right time of year for wasps. And the moment I was telling my story, this wasp flew around and just, you know, came and just sat near the table with us. And then the moment I'd finished my story, it was gone. There was nowhere to be seen where it was. So the amazing things that can happen with spirits, that also happened later in that night when we went to a restaurant. It happened again, and then it disappeared again. So these amazing things. And the great meow says, my son left me a black feather with a bright orange tip. Orange is his color. That's wonderful, you know. And I think these signs are beautiful signs that spirit can leave us. And whether it's a CD player that won't play the right music, or whether it's a feather with bright orange tip, or whether it's a dimes or white feathers, or they send you totems like the wasp, and then they prove it again and again. Isn't that wonderful that spirit will always, time and time again, let us know that everything's all right and they're thinking of us?
Mm-hmm. And just one last final story. Just hearing the orange is his color and the orange in the tip. Last year, my cat went missing. She was a beautiful orange tabby. And she went missing for probably about 8 months, and always asking for signs. Okay, she well. And she turned out, my neighbor found her, you know, deceased in her shed. And the day that she told me that she found her, I went and saw. And within 2 hours, the sun had set. And there was the most beautiful orange sunset. Like, it was the most orange you'd ever seen. And I knew that was a sign from her saying thank you. And I knew that as well, because she was orange and sending an orange sunset, that was my sign. And so it doesn't limit us to just human, but it can also be our animals in spirit that can give us those signs as well. So I wanted to thank everyone for coming on this call today, and thank you, Jason, for doing this together, and thank you for all your beautiful insights and teachings as always. And just want to say that we look forward to having you in Canada in the fall, in October, and we have some great courses planned with mediumship and trance, as well as a couple demonstrations and a Halloween party and seances. And we always look forward to having you, and we, hope we can do more of this.
Looking forward to it. Great.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming and sitting, and your beautiful questions, and to take care until we see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.